The private banker's hands trembled as she slid the folder across the mahogany desk. "Mr. Monroe, there's been unusual activity on your foundation accounts. Large withdrawals to offshore accounts we can't trace." Darius Kincaid Monroe, Big Boss Darius, to those who knew him, didn't flinch. He'd built empires, survived betrayals, and outlasted sharks in $1,000 suits. But this hit different, because the only other person with access to those accounts was the woman he'd been falling for these past 6 months. The woman who'd sworn she wanted nothing from him but his time. The woman sitting in his penthouse right now, probably sipping the Dom Perignon he'd opened to celebrate their Bahamas trip tomorrow. He adjusted his signature white fedora, the morning sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his downtown Chicago office, catching the crisp lines of his white suit. "How much we talking about, Patricia?" $7 million. Over the past 3 weeks. $7 million. Pocket change in his world, but the principal? That cut deeper than any financial loss ever could. If you're already hooked and want to see how this unfolds, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button real quick. Trust me, you'll want to catch every twist in this story. Welcome to the world of Big Boss Darius, where luxury meets loyalty, and the heart's the biggest gamble of all. Patricia Hayes leaned back in her leather chair, concern etching lines around her eyes. She'd been Darius's private banker for 15 years, had seen him through 3 major acquisitions, 2 economic downturns, and more romantic entanglements than she cared to count. But this one seemed different. This one had him smiling at board meetings, leaving the office before sunset, talking about maybe slowing down. The withdrawals started small, Patricia continued, pulling up digital statements on her tablet. 50,000 here, 100 there. Then last week, 2 million in one transaction, all routed through a shell corporation in the Cayman Islands, registered to someone named Victoria Vidal. Victoria! His Victoria! The art curator with the infectious laugh and eyes like summer storms. The woman who'd walked into his life at a charity gala 6 months ago and somehow made a 62-year-old billionaire feel like he was 25 again. Darius stood, walking to the window overlooking the Chicago River. The afternoon sun glinted off the water, sailboats cutting white paths through the blue. He'd bought her one of those boats last month. Said it reminded her of growing up in Newport. She'd cried, told him it was too much, that she didn't need his money, just his company. "Pull everything," he said quietly. "Every transaction, every timestamp, every digital fingerprint. And Patricia, keep this between us. Not even Jerome needs to know yet." Jerome was his head of security, a former Secret Service agent who could find a needle in a haystack and make the haystack confess where it came from. But if Victoria was playing him, and that was still an if, he reminded himself he needed to know why before bringing in the heavy artillery. "Will do, boss." "And Darius?" Patricia's voice softened. "I hope I'm wrong about this one. You and me both." The drive from his office to the penthouse took 20 minutes through afternoon traffic. Darius sat in the back of his pearl-white Rolls-Royce Phantom, his mind racing faster than the engine. Victoria had seemed genuine from day one. No starry eyes at his wealth, no hints for expensive gifts, no social media posts flaunting their relationship. She was 48, divorced, with a teenage daughter at Northwestern. She had her own career, her own life, her own income. So why would she need to steal $7 million? His driver, Marcus was fine. He'd been with Darius for a decade, caught his eye in the rearview mirror. "Everything all right, boss? You seem tense." "Just business, Marcus. Always business." The penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a building Darius owned in the Gold Coast. As the private elevator rose, he checked his reflection in the mirrored walls. The white suit was immaculate as always, not a wrinkle despite the long morning. The fedora sat at just the right angle. But his eyes showed the weight of suspicion, and he couldn't have that. Not yet. Victoria was in the kit haze when he entered, wearing one of his white dress shirts and yoga pants, her auburn hair pulled into a messy bun. NPR played softly from the smart speakers. She looked up from chopping vegetables, her face lighting up the way it always did when he came home. "There's my handsome man," she said, crossing the Italian marble floor to kiss him. She tasted like the strawberries sitting in a bowl on the counter. "You're home early. Everything okay?" This was the moment. The moment he could confront her, demand answers, watch her face foretells. But 15 years of high-stakes negotiations had taught him something valuable. Never show your hand until you know the full game. "Cleared my afternoon," he said, wrapping an arm around her waist. "Figured we could start our vacation a day early. Maybe take the jet to Miami tonight. Spend tomorrow on the yacht before we head to Nassau." Her smile faltered for just a fraction of a second. There and gone. But he caught it. The way her hand tightened on the knife. The slight intake of breath. "That sounds amazing," she said, turning back to her vegetables. "But I can't tonight. I have that exhibition opening at the gallery. The one I've been planning for months? With the Emerging Artists program?" True. He'd forgotten about that. Or had he? His mind was usually sharper. "Tomorrow morning, then," he said. "First thing." "Perfect," she resumed chopping, the knife hitting the cutting board with rhythmic precision. "I'm making that pasta you love, the one with the roasted tomatoes and fresh basil from the rooftop garden." Darius poured himself a scotch from the bar Macallan 25, the good stuff, and settled onto the white leather sofa. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Lake Michigan stretched endless and blue. A few clouds dotted the sky, but the weather forecast promised clear skies all week. His phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. "Found something. Call me when you can talk privately." "Baby, I need to take a call," he said, standing. "Client emergency. You know how it is." Victoria glanced over her shoulder, nodding. "Don't work too hard. This is supposed to be your vacation, too." He retreated to his study, closing the heavy oak door behind him. The room smelled like leather and old books, first editions lining the walls, a collection spanning decades. He'd once told Victoria she could read any of them. She'd chosen a worn copy of Baldwin's If Beale Street Could Talk, and spent a Sunday afternoon crying through the final chapters. "Talk to me," he said, dialing Patricia. "The Shell Corporation? It's registered to Victoria Vidal, but the actual account activity traces back to someone else, a man named Raphael Vidal. Any idea who that might be?" Darius's blood ran cold. Her ex-husband. She said he was living in California, tech startup guy. They divorced 5 years ago. Well, he's not in California, he's in Chicago. And according to what I'm seeing, he's in deep with some very unpleasant people. Gambling debts? The kind that come with broken kneecaps if you don't pay up. The pieces started clicking into place. How much does he owe? $8 million. And his last known address? An apartment in Lincoln Park, 3 blocks from your penthouse. Darius hung up and sat in the darkness of his study, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the Persian rug. Victoria wasn't stealing from him. She was saving her ex-husband's life. The question was, did she know? Or was Raphael using her identity without her knowledge? There was only one way to find out. He found her setting the table in the dining room. Candles lit even though the sun was still up. She'd changed into a simple black dress, elegant and understated. The woman had style without trying, one of the things that first attracted him to her. "Victoria, sit down. We need to talk." The color drained from her face. She knew. Of course she knew. You couldn't be with someone like Darius Monroe for 6 months and not realize he had ways of finding things out. "Before you say anything," she started, her voice trembling. "I can explain." "I'm listening." She collapsed into one of the dining chairs, her hands shaking. "Raphael came to see me 3 weeks ago. First time in 5 years. He looked terrible, thin, strung out, terrified. He said he owed money to dangerous people. Said they were going to kill him if he didn't pay up by the end of the month. So you stole from me." "No." She looked up, tears streaming down her face. "I would never steal from you, Darius. Never. Raphael had access to my old accounts from when we were married. I thought I'd closed everything. But there was one joint trust account I'd forgotten about. The one my father set up for us as a wedding gift. Raphael still had the paperwork, the passwords, everything. But the withdrawals were from my foundation accounts. Victoria's face went from pale to ghostly white. "What? No, that's impossible," he said. "Oh my God." She stood, pacing. "He said he needed access to my accounts to prove to these people he could pay. Said if they saw sufficient funds, they'd give him an extension. I gave him my old bank information, the trust account. Darius, I swear I didn't know how did he even— Your name is still on my foundation accounts as a charitable advisor. Remember? I added you 2 months ago so you could help select the art programs we fund. That access level allows limited transfers for approved charitable purposes." She stared at him, horror dawning across her features. "He's been using me to steal from you. Looks that way." Victoria sank back into the chair, her head in her hands. The candles flickered, casting dancing shadows across the walls. Outside, the city hummed with life, cars honking, people laughing, the world spinning on like nothing was wrong. But in this room, everything had shifted. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. I'll pay it back. Every penny. I'll sell my condo, my car, everything I own. I'll—" "Stop." Darius's voice was firm but not harsh. He sat down across from her, taking her hands in his. They were ice cold. "Look at me, Victoria." She did, her storm-gray eyes swimming with tears. "Do you love me?" The question hung in the air between them. "More than I thought I could love anyone again," she said. "These past 6 months have been the happiest I've been since before my first marriage fell apart. You make me feel seen, Darius. Not as an accessory or a trophy or a means to an end. Just seen." He believed her. 15 years of reading people, of spotting lies and half-truths across boardroom tables, and he believed her. "Then here's what we're going to do," he said. "We're going to find Raphael. We're going to figure out who he owes this money to, and we're going to solve this problem together. Darius, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. Because that's what you do for people you love. You protect them. You stand beside them. And you sure as hell don't let some gambling addict ex-husband destroy what we've built." Victoria let out a sob that was half laugh, half cry. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not. I'm quite a catch," he smiled. And despite everything, she smiled back. "Now, do you know where Raphael is staying?" "The apartment in Lincoln Park. He gave me the address in case of emergency." Darius pulled out his phone, texting Jerome. "Time to bring in the professionals." Jerome arrived within the hour, a mountain of a man in a perfectly tailored navy suit. He'd been briefed on the situation and had already started pulling information on Raphael Vidal and his creditors. "The debt is with a local gambling syndicate," Jerome said, spreading papers across Darius's desk. Victoria sat beside Darius, her hand in his. "Run by a guy named Tommy Falcone, small time compared to the real players, but nasty enough. Raphael's been betting on sports, poker, horses, anything with odds. Started winning, got cocky, then lost big. Real big. How big? 8.3 million, including interest." Darius whistled low. "That's some serious bad luck, or some serious stupidity," Jerome said. "Tommy's given him until Friday to pay. That's 2 days from now. After that," he drew a finger across his throat. "We need to talk to Raphael first," Darius said. "See if he's willing to cooperate. And if he's not, then we'll have a different conversation." They found Raphael in his apartment that evening, a sad little studio with water-stained ceilings and the smell of desperation. He opened the door wearing a stained undershirt and sweatpants, his face gaunt and unshaven. When he saw Victoria, relief flooded his features. When he saw Darius and Jerome, fear replaced it. "Vicky, thank God. Did you get more money? Tommy's guys came by again today and they weren't—" He stopped, noticing Darius's expression. Oh, "Oh no. You're going to invite us in," Darius said calmly. "And then you're going to explain why you've been stealing from me using your ex-wife's identity." Raphael stumbled backward, letting them enter. The apartment was worse inside: empty liquor bottles, scattered papers, a mattress on the floor. This was what rock bottom looked like. "I didn't know what else to do," Raphael said, his voice breaking. "They were going to kill me, man. These aren't people you negotiate with, they're animals." "So you decided to steal from a billionaire?" Jerome's voice was cold. "That's your survival strategy?" I thought I could pay it back before anyone noticed. I had a sure thing, a tech stock that was about to blow up. I was going to invest the $7 million, triple it in a week, pay off Tommy, return Darius's money, and everyone would be happy. "Let me guess," Darius said. "The stock tanked." Raphael nodded miserably. "Lost everything 2 days ago. Now I owe you $7 million and Tommy $8 million, and I'm a dead man either way." Victoria stood by the window, arms crossed, looking at the man she'd once loved enough to marry. "You always did think you were smarter than you actually were, Raphael. I'm sorry, Vicky. I'm so sorry. I never meant for you to get dragged into this. But I am dragged into it because you used my name, my identity, my trust, and you put the man I love in the crossfire of your mess." The silence that followed was heavy. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Chicago, at night. Always something happening, always someone in trouble. Darius walked to the window, standing beside Victoria. The city lights sparkled below, millions of lives intersecting, each person fighting their own battles. He'd built his empire by being smart, ruthless when necessary, but always strategic, never emotional. But love made you do things that didn't always make financial sense. "Here's the deal," he said, turning back to Raphael. "I'm going to pay off your debt to Tommy Falcone, all $8.3 million. Raphael's eyes went wide. "You'd do that? After what I did? I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for Victoria. Because she shouldn't have to live in fear because her ex-husband is an idiot. Darius, you don't have to." Victoria started. "Yes, I do. But Raphael, you're going to do something for me in return. Anything. Name it. You're going to check yourself into a treatment facility. Not for drugs, for gambling addiction. You're going to stay there for 6 months, minimum. You're going to get your life together. And you're going to sign over power of attorney to Victoria so she can manage any remaining assets. You have to pay me back whatever you can." "I don't have any assets. I lost everything." "Then you'll work it off. I own a logistics company in California. You'll start in the warehouse, minimum wage, and you'll send 30% of every paycheck to Victoria until the debt is settled. It'll take years, maybe decades, but you'll do it." Raphael stared at him like he'd offered salvation. "You'd give me a job? After everything? I'm giving you a chance to rebuild your life. Don't waste it." Jerome handed Raphael a card. "Treatment facility in Wisconsin. You'll be there tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Miss that appointment, and this deal is off the table. I'll be there. I swear." The meeting with Tommy Falcone was set for the next afternoon at a restaurant in Little Italy. Darius insisted on going alone. No Jerome, no security detail. Just him and Tommy, 2 businessmen discussing a transaction. Victoria had protested, but he'd kissed her worries away. "Baby, I've been negotiating with sharks since before you were born. This Tommy Falcone, he's a guppy." The restaurant was old-school Italian red-checkered tablecloths, photos of Sicily on the walls, the smell of garlic and tomato sauce heavy in the air. Tommy sat in the back booth, a stocky man in his 50s with slicked-back hair and enough gold jewelry to open a pawn shop. "Mr. Monroe," Tommy said, standing to shake hands. "I gotta say, I was surprised when I got your call. What's a billionaire want with a guy like me? I'm here about Rafael Vidal's debt." Tommy's friendly demeanor cooled. "That deadbeat owes me $8.3 million. Plus, he's got 2 days to pay. He doesn't have it. He lost everything. Then he's got a problem." Darius pulled out his phone, showing Tommy a bank transfer confirmation. I'm prepared to pay the full amount, right now. $8.3 million transferred to whatever account you specify. Tommy's eyes widened. You're serious? Dead serious. But I have conditions. Of course you do. Rich guys always got conditions. Rafael Vidal disappears from your radar. Permanently. You forget he exists. And if I even suspect that anyone connected to you goes near him or anyone he knows, I will make your operation very uncomfortable. Tommy laughed, but it was nervous. You threatening me, Mr. Monroe? I'm stating facts. I have resources you can't imagine. Friends in places you didn't know had friends. I don't make threats, Tommy. I make promises. They stared at each other across the table. The restaurant hummed with lunchtime chatter, the clink of silverware, the hiss of the espresso machine. Two worlds colliding over pasta and threats. Deal, Tommy finally said. Transfer the money and Vidal's clean. He ain't my problem no more. The transfer took 5 minutes. Tommy verified it on his phone, then stood, offering his hand again. Pleasure doing business with you, Mr. Monroe. And hey, if you ever need anything in my particular line of work, I won't. But thank you for being reasonable. Back at the penthouse, Victoria was waiting on the balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Lake Michigan reflected the colors, turning the water into liquid fire. She turned when she heard him, questions in her eyes. It's done, Darius said. Raphael's debt is cleared. He's checking into treatment tomorrow, and Tommy Falcone won't be bothering anyone. She rushed into his arms, and he held her as she cried, relief, gratitude, guilt, all mixed together. They stood there as the sun disappeared, as the city lights came on one by one, as the world shifted from day to night. Why? She finally asked. Why would you spend that much money for someone who stole from you? Because it wasn't really about Raphael. It was about you. About us. About not letting someone else's mistakes destroy something good. That's over $15 million total, Darius. He smiled, tilting her chin up to look at him. Baby, I spend more than that on art for my offices. Money comes and goes. But finding someone who loves you for who you are, not what you have, that's priceless. They kissed as the stars came out, and for the first time in days, the weight lifted from both their shoulders. The next morning, they watched from Darius's laptop as Raphael checked into the treatment facility in Wisconsin. Jerome had arranged transportation and confirmed his arrival. It was real. He was really going to try. Think he'll make it? Victoria asked, leaning against Darius's shoulder. Honestly, I don't know. But I gave him a chance. What he does with it is up to him. She nodded, then smiled. So, about that trip to the Bahamas? The jet's ready when you are. They spent 4 days in Nassau, staying on Darius's yacht, a 150-foot beauty named Second Chances. They swam in crystal-clear water, ate fresh seafood on the deck, and watched dolphins play in their wake. Victoria read books while Darius conducted business calls, and they made love under the stars with the sound of waves lapping against the hull. On their last night, sitting on the upper deck with glasses of champagne, Victoria said, I need to tell you something. Darius felt his chest tighten. Not more revelations. Please, not more revelations. When I met you at that charity gala, she continued, I was at a really dark place. My daughter was struggling at school. My job was on the line because of budget cuts, and I felt like I was drowning. Then you walked up to me, tipped that ridiculous white hat, and asked if I'd ever seen a painting by Basquiat in person. I remember. You said yes, but you'd never really understood what all the fuss was about. She laughed. And you spent the next hour explaining his work, his life, his impact on art history. You were so passionate, so knowledgeable, so present. No one had been that present with me in years. Where are you going with this? I'm saying that even if all this hadn't happened with Raphael, even if everything had been perfect, I still would have fallen in love with you, not because of your money or your power or your lifestyle, but because you saw me, really saw me. Darius pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair mixed with salt air. You know what the crazy thing is? I've been a billionaire for 20 years, had more women than I can count interested in me. But you're the first one who ever asked me what I was afraid of. What are you afraid of? That I'll die alone. That all this, he gestured at the yacht, the champagne, the endless ocean, will just be stuff, and no one will remember who I actually was. I'll remember, she said softly. And I'll make sure everyone knows Darius Kincaid Monroe wasn't just a billionaire. He was a man who saved someone he barely knew, who protected someone he loved, and who understood that the best investment you can make is in another human being. They returned to Chicago the next day. But something had shifted. The crisis had either broken them or forged them stronger. And they'd chosen stronger. 3 months later, Victoria's Gallery opened a new wing funded entirely by Darius's foundation, a space dedicated to emerging artists from underrepresented communities. The opening night was packed with Chicago's elite, all dressed in their finest, sipping expensive wine and pretending to understand abstract art. Darius stood in his signature white suit and fedora, Victoria on his arm in a stunning emerald dress, watching as young artists saw their work displayed in a professional gallery for the first time. The joy on their faces, the pride, the validation that was worth more than any balance sheet. You did a good thing here, Victoria whispered. We did a good thing. This was your vision. I just wrote the check. Raphael had been in treatment for 90 days and, according to his counselor, was making progress. He video-called Victoria once a week, always apologetic, always grateful. His job at Darius's logistics company was waiting when he completed the program. Think he'll really change? Jerome asked, standing beside Darius at the gallery. Everyone deserves a second chance. Whether they take it or not is on them. The night wound down, guests filtering out into the cool Chicago evening. Darius and Victoria were the last to leave, walking hand in hand through the empty gallery, their footsteps echoing on the polished floors. So what's next for the great Big Boss Darius? Victoria asked with a teasing smile. Well, I've been thinking about that. Jerome's been after me to slow down, maybe start transitioning some of my business interests to younger leadership. You? Retire? Not retire. Redirect. Focus on the foundation work, the charitable stuff. Spend more time with a certain art curator I'm quite fond of. She stopped walking, turning to face him. Darius Monroe, are you saying you want to spend more time with me? I'm saying I want to spend all my time with you. Wake up next to you every morning. Fall asleep holding you every night. Travel the world. Support your work. Build something that matters. That sounds suspiciously like, it's whatever you want it to sound like. I'm not going to rush you, pressure you, or expect anything you're not ready to give. But Victoria Vidal, you're the best thing that's happened to me in a very long time, and I'm not letting you go without a fight. She kissed him then, long and deep, with the artwork of dozens of hopeful young artists surrounding them. When they finally pulled apart, she was crying again. Happy tears this time. I love you, Darius Monroe. I love you too, baby. More than you'll ever know. 6 months later, they were engaged. The proposal happened on another yacht trip, this time to the Greek islands. Darius got down on one knee during sunset in Santorini, the white buildings and blue-domed churches providing the perfect backdrop. The ring was a stunning sapphire surrounded by diamonds, no generic stone for his woman. Raphael completed his treatment and started his job in California. He'd been sober from gambling for 9 months and was slowly rebuilding his life. He sent his first payment to Victoria, a small amount, but it was something, a start. He's actually doing it, Victoria said, looking at the check. He's really trying. People can change, Darius said, if they want it bad enough. The wedding was intimate, just close friends and family at Darius's estate in Martha's Vineyard. Victoria wore white, Darius wore white, And even the flowers were white. Her daughter Madison was the maid of honor, and Jerome was the best man. They exchanged vows as the sun set over the ocean, promising to love, honor, and protect each other through whatever came next. At the reception, dancing under strings of lights with his wife in his arms, Darius felt something he hadn't felt in years: complete contentment. Not the satisfaction of a closed deal or the thrill of a won negotiation, just pure, simple happiness. "What are you thinking about?" Victoria asked, her head on his shoulder. "I'm thinking about how close I came to losing this. How, if I'd reacted differently, if I'd let anger win instead of understanding, we wouldn't be here right now. But you didn't. You chose love over pride. That's who you are, Darius. That's why I said yes." They danced until the stars came out, until the guests went home, until it was just them and the sound of waves and the promise of tomorrow. Big Boss Darius had faced down corporate sharks, negotiated billion-dollar deals, and built an empire from nothing. But his greatest achievement wasn't in any portfolio or property deed. It was standing right here in his arms, loving him not for what he had, but for who he was. And that, he realized, was the real measure of wealth. If this story touched your heart, do me a solid, hit that like button, drop a comment telling me what you thought, and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Big Boss Darius has more adventures coming, and trust me, you'll want to be there for all of them. Until next time, remember, the best investment you can make is in the people you love. Peace.